Hello and welcome to the Circuit Breakers interview series. I'm your host, Steve Semler, and today I'm joined by Colton Hazelett, who is the co-founder and CTO at Hinckley Medical. Colton, thank you so much for joining us. Would you like to kick us off with a brief background as to who you are and what you do?
As Steve mentioned, I'm Colton Hazelett, the CTO of Hinckley Medical, and really, it's been quite the ride. We've been doing this for about 3 years now, and what we came across is 3 years ago, my oldest brother, who is was a paramedic at the time, studying to be a paramedic, came back and just he was really having a hard time, and it got to the point where he had to actually estimate a patient's weight in the field. And then he was apparently not very good at it. So he brought that home and he brought it to my other brother, Tristan Hazlett. Uh, and he said that they have to estimate a patient's weight in an EMS setting. So him being an engineer, he was thinking about it and he was like, wow, that is crazy that you have to estimate a patient's weight. So after a year of looking into it, he realized that there was nothing going on in the EMS field to actually put a scale on the gurney itself. And then 3 years later, we're coming into the where we're getting to now, where we actually brought a scale into the EMS market.
How's that? So how's that working from a business standpoint? What are the things that are you've had to kind of overcome to get into that market there?
Yeah, well, the biggest thing that we had right away is we really took the lean startup strategy. We took the challenge of bringing a medical device to the market with under $80,000 raised. So we really bootstrapped all of that just to bring the product into the market. So by far the hardest challenge with the scale itself was the technology behind it, because we really had to innovate in a lot of different ways just to make it compatible in an EMS setting. Because if you think about EMS, everything that they do is very rugged. It's an outside, it's non-ideal scenarios. So being able to have a reliable technology in those settings was a huge leap that we had to overcome to get that.
Yeah. If you don't mind sharing, what are some of the things that you found to be able to get it to that standard of reliability and ruggedness?
Yeah, there was a lot of optimization that we had to do. The biggest thing is the amount of sensors that we actually need, and being able to make them all work together in one seamless way to get the weight by far was the hardest challenge. And the amount of noise that we had to reduce from that, just because we have all of these sensors, it really was a feat that took a while to get to where we are.
And then that feeds into the app to let somebody know about weight for dosage purposes.
Yeah, so as I was saying, as soon as we brought the scale to market, we were having some success. But the biggest feedback that we were getting right away is, you have the weight, what's next? So we really took some time to think about that, and we had a great team of advisors working with us to get us to the point where we've really starting to bring it to the full solution, which is taking this application that we have, inputting the weight directly from the scale to make it as seamless as possible to the medic. We don't even want the medics to know there is a scale there. Rather, we would have it just immediately input to our application, which our application is actually tailored to each EMS agency, which
Mm.
will then immediately calculate any medications based off any weight that you get from the scale and an estimated weight that they can have now. Which I'll kind of explain that, because the current EMS standard right now is to use estimated weights because they don't have a way to actually obtain an actual body weight. So they actually have the ability in our application itself as well to use their standard and then compare it with the actual body weight as well.
Oh, okay. So even being able to compare, apples to apples in that standpoint.
Yeah, exactly.
Makes sense. Cool. Um, so what are, as you kind of built this business and kind of bootstrapped it up, what are some of the misconceptions you've heard from people that you've been talking to about, oh, well, medical devices is for really big companies or something like that?
Yeah, well, To be completely honest with our journey in medical devices as well, we've had it more on the easier side of things because we are not a class 3 medical device. So there's not a big overhaul of
Yeah.
backing it up with research for 8 years before we can actually bring it to market. So we're a class 1 medical device, which that has been fortunate on that side. Kind of going into, sorry, yeah, if you can re-ask the question, actually.
Oh, no, it's like when you talk to people in a business sense, they might have some preconceived notion about what it takes to succeed in this particular area. Yeah, has that been your experience, or have you found something else?
I would say the biggest thing that's led to our success is the team that we've actually built up. I'm the CTO, so I've been handling all of the technology side, and then my brother is the CEO, actually, Tristan Hazelett. He's been handling the operations in most of the business, and then we also have our COO, Mike, who is also a co-founder. He's been managing all our operations and really spearheading our sales, which has been the biggest part of where we're getting to now. Is we're really starting to fine tune how we can. Great, now we have the product, but now how can we actually sell it to our customers, which is the biggest challenge of all startups.
Yeah, yeah. How are you going to reach out and manage to get to those different customers? Because I imagine this is something that there's a huge market for in the EMS departments.
Yes, absolutely. So there's kind of two things with this. Is EMS as a whole is starting to become an emerging market. We got into it initially, and then we did a bunch of investigating to see other companies that were in this area, and we could come up with almost like a handful of them. Now, 3 years later, we're starting to see startups coming into it, and it's really starting to grow into this emerging market, which is awesome to see because the emerging market's only going to drive innovation. And kind of going into the EMS market itself, it's been it's government, or a lot of the contracts are through government, so it has to get approved by a board. So they have to make their budget for each year.
Mhm.
Because of that, sometimes their billing cycles with smaller departments can take 4 to 8 months. With larger ones, it can take 12 to 16 months. So really getting in front of them and being able to have these conversations early and building relationships is part of the one of the biggest parts that we found. And two best ways to do this is one, trade shows. They're always going to be a big one. They always go there to the trade shows to see the newest technology, and then that's where you can start to get warm introductions. And just when you're at these trade shows, you really start to build your brand just by having a presence there. And then, as always, cold calling is a big part of what we do on a daily basis as well.
Yeah, makes sense. I mean, because you've got to get yourselves out there to be able to find the people who need your product. Um,
Mhm.
and kind of from a sales marketing versus technology side, lots of technology leaders or people who are techies get into their businesses and they love the technology, but they also have to kind of put up with the frustrations of the people side of the business. They feel it takes away from time they could be spending on solutions. How do you handle that challenge?
Can you say that again? How do we handle?
Yeah, how do you handle maybe it's that split you were talking about with you as the CTO, CEO, COO. How do you handle the uh, being able to focus on the technology part of it that you do?
Yeah, by far, my biggest role as I was going into this has been the technology side. And lately, what we've been seeing as we start to grow and more demands are coming in, but less, we don't have as many people to fill them, is that the separation of the different aspects for the CEO, the COO, and the CTO, just so we don't have to all three be working on the same thing, which was, as soon as we got into this, we were all working as a startup. We all were wearing as many hats as we possibly could wear. So we're all working together into this, and as we start to grow, demand keeps growing. So we're finding that that separation has been leading more benefit to the company as a whole. So as what I do mostly on a day-to-day basis now is really just trying to grow this platform to the best that it can possibly be.
Yeah. Um, what's coming up with the future, over the next year or so?
So we actually recently just released our admin console, which is a big step for us. So on top of having our mobile application, we released an admin website. So the administration does not have to go through us to update any of the information on the mobile application. So that was a big leap of technology for us this year. And then going into Q1, Q2 this year, one of our biggest goals is to get integration actually with the EPCR, which then will go into the EHR as well.
Yeah. So some technical challenges and kind of operational stuff there too.
Mhm.
Oh, cool. Just from kind of pulling back the camera a little bit, what advice would you offer to aspiring entrepreneurs, people who are getting into medical devices or tech sectors, and they're just starting out and facing challenges?
Yeah, I would say the best three things that I ever have found during this challenge is one, just always having a drive, just always being able to just keep driving, even when the things are bad, because they're going to be bad at sometimes too, but that just makes so much better for the good. And then really just having a support system around you is the biggest thing. And then being open to that support is massive. Actually knowing that when you get into technology and this is your first time in entrepreneurship, you're not going to know all the answers, even though it may seem so. So just being open to advice and at the same time not too open where you're going away from the course of the vision of the company as well.
Awesome. And that rings very similar to a conversation I was having with a person who was a previous chief learning officer at General Mills. He was talking about coachability. It's being open and intentionally being open and seeking out the opportunities to try things out and to wiggle and fit and continue to get feedback in there as you grow through the business process. Neat.
Yeah. Yeah, and I would say one other thing that we kind of try to excel at this year is learn fast and fail fast. If you're going to commit time to something and it's not going to pan out in the end, instead of dragging it along and trying to make it, just move on and move on to what is working. So learn fast and fail fast is a big part of what we try to aspire to do as well.
Yeah. Sometimes that gets to be kind of tough for folks in the tech world where they're invested in their particular solution. How do you recognize when something's a time to move on from something that's not working?
One thing that we found is, well, there's a couple of things there. One is we always formulate ideas before we ever put any time and effort into making the idea into fruition, because it's amazing if you can make this amazing product, but if nobody's ever actually going to buy it in the market that you're trying to sell, there's no benefit of having the world-class software versus a software that's not as good, that's more practical to your customer. So really just balancing these ideas when they're in the idea stage, and then maybe starting with small prototypes and then getting it in the field was a big part of what we did. So that's when we knew less on the technology side of a product that we didn't need to go this way, but instead it was more of a route that we had. So when we first came out with our scale, we were a hardware only company. And
Mm,
when we started presenting this idea to our customers, this kind of ties back into the what's next after you get the weight, because there was the true ROI didn't come because it was primarily for patient care at the time, which doesn't have a monetary ROI sometimes connected with it. So being able to switch our transition now into a SaaS model uh, was able to extend that contract size and make it more manageable in having those contracts, and along with attaching an ROI with it.
mm. Okay, that makes a lot of sense in being able to grow it that fast and grow it in that particular path, having the idea in mind and testing it out. Cool. Well, thank you so much for your time today, Colton. Really
Absolutely.
appreciate getting the opportunity to kind of meet you and hear about your entrepreneurial journey too. To those watching, when you're faced with challenges in your business, absolutely consider these tips coming from Colton and Hinckley Medical here. And feel free to reach out to me for coaching and training support. As always, I'm Steve Semler at FocalPoint Business Coaching, helping techies to be great leaders. Look forward to seeing you in our next episode. Thanks.